originating of the universe actually delves into the...
when you say Eastern, what are you talking about? Buddhism? Or which
specifically, I've been mainly interested in Zen Buddhism, which is like... we could reduce it down to Buddhism.
Okay.
And so... they have a different take on nothingness, and so I feel that in the West there's this sort of bias we have, which I also that sort of that things are more important, like that things are more important than not having stuff, in a sense. You know, that's why I also feel we are very materialistic and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so we have also this big bias, which I see in the scientific community, is that everything that's real to us has to be measured. Like, as soon as you can measure it, it's real. And then a question I like to say, ask Dawkins, is like, all right, you go to sleep, you dream you're being on that big boat. Is that real, that experience you'll have?
Right.
And he'll wake up and he'll say, no, I'm going to be objective about it, and I had this dream and it was just all subjective experience.
Right.
What I just experienced is totally subjective and it was not real. And I would say to him, right, but then what was the experience you had? Because clearly you can remember what you have had.
Right.
So basically you have this view of reality, where as soon as I introduce even the concept of dreams, you don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
And so I personally feel that we need sort of an expansion of what we take in to be, what we might consider to be real or not,
right,
in order to sort of get more sense of stuff.
I agree with you, right? I totally agree with that point. So just to summarize what you're saying, is that on naturalism, the first person's subjective experience, especially of things like dreams and so on, cannot really be explained.
Science doesn't understand subjective experience.
Yes,
it can't deal with it.
It can't deal with it.
It can't measure it, so it tries to shove it under the carpet.
Yes. I totally agree with you there. Right. Now, going back to what I was saying, because there's a point of agreement. The point you were making about the Eastern traditions, Zen Buddhism, and so on, and space.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't the broader question of can something come from nothing.
Right.
So, from my reading, I mean, I tried to look at the Eastern traditions myself to see where explicitly there is mention of what we call like the philosophy of religion. In the philosophy of religion, things like the creation of the universe and so on. And there is mention, of course, of, in for example, the Vedas and other books of how the universe came into being, right? But the question of an explicit philosophical inquiry onto whether there can be a creation from nothing wasn't really dealt with in the same way, for example, as the Hellenistic Greeks dealt with it. So when I looked into the works of, for example, Aristotle and Plato, obviously he wrote books called The Physics and the Metaphysics, where he deals specifically with these kinds of things. Aristotle, he wrote 2 books on these kind of things. The Metaphysics, he actually deals specifically with the question of a vacuum. And his elaboration on that topic is quite interesting because it feeds its way all the way through to Leibniz and the discussion that he had with Newton about space being relative or not being relative. So it kind of feeds itself into a physics discourse. But his idea, Aristotle's idea, was that it's not possible for there to be an empty vacuum. There's no such thing as a vacuum, a nothing space. Now, this idea kind of, throughout the medieval period, I would say with a large degree, and I'm obviously here talking about more the Middle Eastern traditions and the Christian and Jewish traditions. Obviously that's where my area is more, where I'm more interested. In those traditions, the logical disjuncture that we talked about in the beginning of how the universe came into existence, it never included nothing created nothing. Right? It was not respected by those individuals. Even up until Leibniz, it was not respected. I could say even... Sorry, I'm not saying... even until this day, it's not respected. I mean, the only people who really postulate here, people like this guy Krauss and other people, are those individuals who really are using semantical deception in order to try and put forward a theory which talks about black holes, which themselves are governed by laws of physics and can't be said to be emptiness or nothingness, in the sense that it's the absence of something, because that's the definition of nothing. It's the absence of something.
The reason
or the equivalent of the mathematical
the reason
zero.
why I brought up dreams, because I don't feel that I tied it back to the ultimate creation question that we were dealing with.
Right.
Like we had an agreement about whether dreams are real and this.
Yes.
Exactly. And so I've remembered now why I brought it up, and I haven't fully explained it. And so my estimation is that we probably have a different take on the meaning of nothing. And so what I feel happens in Abrahamic culture or Abrahamic religion, and now I'm not going to call it Western culture, but I feel I feel that the word nothing is very interesting. So imagine Dawkins dreaming and you confronting him the next morning, like, what did you experience?
Yes.
Because he can't deal with subjective experience as a scientist.
Right.
He'll shove it under the carpet, and he'll say, "Oh, that's nothing."
Right.
And then I'll come back to him and I'll say, "No, you experienced something."
I see your point. Yes.
You did experience something. And so then what was it? And I said, "No, it's nothing." And so what I would like to put forward then is that the way we use the word nothing often can be translated to no, it's unimportant.
Right.
And so I see Abrahamic religion as a sort of filter where we have a very rigid conceptualization of what's real and what's not, and everything that's pushed out of that's outside of this bracket, we just don't look. Right. Even though we do know that it's part of the human experience.
With respect, there would be one objection I have with that, right?
Could I finish the story?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So, in the Eastern religion, they believe in this duality of the yin yang, basically, you know, male and female, etc.
Right.
And so their take on stuff is that in order for there to be something, there has to be nothing. And so I'm not articulate enough to explain all the philosophical underpinnings, but
I get what you mean.
They're like Eastern philosophers. They make a very strong case for this, and it's very fascinating to me. Where they say it's not so much how did something arise out of nothing, but something and nothing arise mutually. Where did that come from? They believe
something and nothing.
Yes, and so my definition of nothing would be that all things considered, like in the same way that if you look at an empty room, and because I said we use the word nothing strange, and I think that we can often translate it to it's unimportant, or maybe even more precisely that which we do not acknowledge to be part of reality, in a sense. It's like if you bring someone to an empty room, it's like, what's in this room? Well, nothing. And I could say that there's empty space.
Now let me explain to you. I think there might be a confusion, right? You said that something and nothing have according to the Eastern traditions. And by the way, we should kind of disentangle the Eastern traditions, because Sikhism is an Eastern tradition. And by the way, it's quite monotheistic.
What's
Sikhism? Sikhism is
that a branch of Hinduism or Islam?
No. It's a standalone religion.
Right, I don't know that.
Yeah. So
I remember the name.
And they believe that the universe began with Ik, with this this ex nihilo creation from God and all that. Yeah. So that's an Eastern tradition. And by the way, you could even interpret the Hindu traditions as believing in the same thing, Brahman and so on, starting the universe or whatever it may be. Now, or creating the universe from timber or whatever the Vedas say. Now, what I'm saying is this: is that the postulation that something and nothing can arise mutually is problematic, because if you mean something and nothing in an absolute sense, that would entail a contradiction. Because if
I understand
do you get it? Because let me explain. Sorry, because nothing by definition is the absence of something, so they can't arise mutually. If one has arisen, the other one must depart.
I think we have to get more sophisticated about nothing. And so if I bring a regular person into an empty room and I'll say what's in this room, they'll say nothing. and I'll say, all right, but what do you mean by nothing? What does a nothing mean? Because clearly for the same reason that when Dawkins wakes up, he hasn't, and he has actually dreamt. He hasn't experienced pure nothing.
No, I get
like
it.
he has actually experienced.
No,
something.
I appreciate
so
that.
In terms of the room, there's an empty room.
Right.
We say it's nothing,
yes.
but there is sort of space.
But this
and
is
so in terms of the
yeah.
creation thing, I believe that whenever I say something and nothing arise mutually, I believe that something is actually. I believe that nothing is actually a thing. It's not necessarily material.
Let me say to you one more time.
It's a potential.
Something, so nothing is a thing.
Yes.
So in
basically,
that case,
roughly speaking.
Let me fine. In that case, let's redefine what nothing is. Right?
Yeah.
You're using these, I would say, equivocations, because when we open the door,
equivocations.
Yeah. So
what's my English is not good enough.
Right. So the fallacy of equivocation is when you use a word in two different contexts, which means two different things, but you're equating them together.
No.
So
I'm trying to propose a new definition.
So, for example, if in the field of, if I go to a hospital, and I say, "Can I speak to a doctor, please?" Yeah, and there's someone who's a historian with a PhD stands up and says, "Yeah, okay, I'll speak to you right now." Say, "Look, I was talking about the medical doctor, not the historian." So you have to differentiate between that which we say and that which we mean. Because you can use the same word, homonyms and homographs and whatever in English language, which are written in the same way and sound the same, but they mean two different things completely. So if you open a room and you say, okay, that's nothing, that's in our vernacular, that's in our common speech. When we open
I understand
but
what
when we say philosophically or mathematically or logically, the idea of nothing is an absence of something. So in mathematics, nothing is zero, is represented by that particular symbol, right? And that's why there are so many problems in mathematics with zero. Divide 0 by 0, what's the answer?
0.
Some say 0, some say 1.
Yeah.
And some say infinity, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference of opinion. You see, now that's the problem. Now when you have a conceptual thing introduced into mathematics, you get more than one answer, it's undefined. If you get infinity and try and divide it at times, it's going to be problematic. There's a tendency towards infinity and so on. Mathematicians have struggled and grappled with those concepts. Now what I'm saying to you is, if we look at the idea of nothing as an absence of something, I'm just using that word. If nothing means, it's a conditional here, an absence of something, is it conceivable, possible, fathomable?
No, in that sense, no. Totally
that
not.
Something can come from that.
Nothing, no.
So that's perfect.
No.
In that case, this understanding that the universe is self-originated or originated from nothing is an understanding that can't be logically substantiated with any kind of evidence, cosmological or ontological, right? In the mind or in the scientific world.
Can I tie this heavenly stuff to the earth? Because that's what I find fascinating.
Okay.
It's like to talk about cosmology and bring it right back to all of these people and you and me.
Yes.
So I think that if you'd have to bring this, what I see, the argument that we're having in this cosmological stuff,
yes.
if I'd have to bring it down to like direct discourse, I believe that a similar question, like on the same frequency, would be, can the universe be explained? Because that's what I feel is that we're basically arguing. Whereas in a sense, if I'd have to compare it to, where I'm sort of advocating for the nothing side, you're saying no, that's sort of impossible. And if I'd have to bring that back to this discourse that we're having right now and tie it just to philosophy.
But you've just agreed with me, just to be clear. You've agreed with me that the universe, with that definition of nothing...
From your system of thinking, yes.
Yes, from those definitions, cannot be created from nothing, or cannot be originated from nothing. So going back to what I was saying, if I say to you then, that every originated thing has an originator, the universe is an originated thing, therefore the universe has an originator, that originator, by virtue of logical necessity, cannot be nothing.
Right. So
accepted.
So the question, what I would,
from my understanding
that's
so what is that? Yeah. What is the originator of the universe then? Yeah. What must the originator of the universe? What characteristics? What attributes must it have?
what's the originator of the universe?
We'll come to that. But let's answer one question at a time. You can come and stand next to him.
Can I flip it back to you?
Yes.
Can I flip it back to you?
But can you answer that question first, then ask me whatever you want to ask
I'm
first?
not sure. I don't think so.
Right.
No.
So, here the point.
What's your take?
My take is, if we went with his question, what's the originator of the universe?
Yeah.
You do have an infinite regress, obviously, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it doesn't get anywhere.
The answer would be that you'd have to require a pre-eternal, right, agency in order for, that system to start. Now, obviously, someone could turn around and say, but, you know what, I believe in the infinite regress. Wait a minute now. You might say that. Do you believe in the infinite regress?
It's a possibility.
Possibility, fine. No, I'm gonna, for the sake of argument, for me, by the way, I say it's not a possibility. My official position
I agree.
is that it's not a possibility. And the reason why I would say it, just like John Phenopoulos said, he said that it's not possible for an infinity to get greater, right? So for example, now in the universe, are we moving forward in time?
Yeah, but
We are. So if there was an infinite regress, either in time, movement, or bodies that systematically in a linear way come one after the other, then the coming new, or the origination of new time, movement, or bodies would mean that the infinity that we have would have to get bigger. And infinity, as a mathematical kind of concept, cannot be susceptible to addition.
Add-on. It's already infinite.
Because that would be
exactly.
right.
Yeah, I understand.
But for the sake of argument, right? I like to take every argument on board. Even if we say that the universe has there's an infinite amount of bodies or time or whatever, even though that's a logical impossibility, in my view, and in Aristotle's view, and in Aquinas' view, and in Maimonides' view, and in Ghazali's view, the list goes on, almost in everyone's view, in fact. All of those individuals say that, even though I could just argue, but the ultimate cause of that infinite regress is coextensive with the infinite regress. So in other words, where the infinite regress is there, also the ultimate cause is there.
Yeah, it cancels
right.
each other.
So in other words, it doesn't matter. Even if we go down that route, it doesn't actually solve anything. So the point I'm making is, if an infinite regress is impossible or possible, you still have the idea of a cause, an ultimate cause, right?
So
finite
things cannot coexist with infinity. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon me?
Finite things cannot coexist with infinity. They cannot exist inside of infinity because infinity is infinite. Every single small shadow of infinity is infinite. Is that what you mean? Is that
from a cosmological perspective or a mathematical perspective?
Both.
Well, no, they're two separate questions, right?
Well, infinity itself cannot be truly perceived by humans. Come here, don't run away. He's gone.
Go ahead, sir. Do you mind him coming
Infinity by itself cannot be quite perceived by humans.
I do like to ask you a question later.
Cannot be quite perceived by humans because we are finite beings.
Okay.
So by your logic, infinity is impossible. It's impossible that there's an infinite regression.
I said, just to
then it's impossible that there's an infinite regression. Is that what you said?
Just to be clear, what I said was that in the case where there is an infinite regress, or there isn't an infinite regress, in either case, I would say in the case that there isn't, then you can say, well, you need a pre-eternal ultimate cause.
There's
right?
an exception to
if you say there is
regress.
an ultimate regress, I'll say no problem. For the sake of argument, let's go with that. Let's say that there was an eternality of objects' movement on time before the universe, but I'll say that does not cancel out the idea that there is a coextensive ultimate cause. So even if you have your ultimate regress, I don't care. If you really believe in infinity, I don't care. You can believe in infinity, believe in it before the universe, but I'll say what caused that infinity, even if you believe in it. So I haven't got a problem. I haven't got a problem either way.
Two questions, and basically that's it.
Yeah.
First of all, is God infinite?
In what? Because infinite, let me tell you the word infinite. Infinite does not make sense as a word by itself. It's like saying the word, is God zero? Zero in what? Zero in injustice? Absolutely, right?
That God doesn't exist.
No. So if you say, that's not how it works. Infinity,
That's not how it works.
infinity has to be you have to add the word infinity with some kind of subject or object. So you have to say, does he have infinite
This
ties
mercy?
into a question I
Yeah,
want to ask.
infinite
It's
time.
infinite.
No, infinite in and of
It's something infinite.
infinite in and of itself must be contextualized with either time, bodies, movement, or something. Otherwise, we're talking about an abstraction, which actually, to most mathematicians, doesn't mean much, right?
Well, even in time, body, even if you try to make it more concise, more concrete, it's still infinity. It still cannot be perceived by humans. It's still exactly the
So
same.
what
You're not
your
changing
question, is
anything.
God infinite, is not a complete question. Is he infinite in what? What are you
Is
asking
he
exactly?
infinite in knowledge? For
Yes.
example?
Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, he has all knowledge. Yes.
Yes. So does God know what it means to be evil?
He knows what it means to be evil. Yes.
So he was evil.
You don't have to. That's a. It's
He
like
experienced being
Right.
evil.
No, God is
does
not
God
susceptible.
know the experience of being evil?
All right. So here's what I would say to you. Right. The susceptibility of experience, as known by human beings, is not the same as for God. So, for example, for us, right, human beings, someone will say, human beings, I can steal. Yes.
Yes.
Does God have the experience of being a thief? No, because God, number one, owns everything. So it's impossible for him to be a thief. So in other words, having the experience of something is not necessarily having the knowledge of it.
But by not having that limit that humans have, God doesn't have the exact knowledge that humans have with that limit.
That's
God doesn't
a
have the